washing up, because even the reception, even translation is something there. So if you think about it in those terms, however we can get most people in.
Boys, scooch up a little bit. Scooch up, scooch up, scooch up. You're going to sit down there. Sit down there. Boys, you want to go back a bit. Yes, scooch back.
Which year group is that?
Year 4. Is that all right?
Yeah.
I'll just pop it to you. Oh, sorry. There's another class.
Oh, that's all right.
Very quickly, please.
What year are you? Year 4? 3? It's wonderful to be at Westover Green. Last year I was here and I met the students that were in Year 5 then, are in Year 6 now. Hello again. And yesterday I was with me Year 5 students, and today I'm with all of you for a while, and then with the foundation students later today, sharing stories from around the world. I think this week you've been looking at a particular story. One story that you've been exploring and that you'll continue to find out about. The story of... And the story that I'm going to tell you this morning is another version of Cinderella. It's a version of Cinderella that comes from England. But maybe you haven't heard it before. But when you're listening, you might notice some similarities between this story, which is called Cap of Rushes, and Cinderella. I hope you'll help me to tell it, and when I say that, I'm talking to the staff and the children. Old King Cole was a merry old soul, and the merry old soul was he. He called for his pipe, and he called for his bowl, and he called for his fiddlers 3. Now every fiddler had a very fine fiddle, and a very fine fiddle had he. Let none no fairies can compare with King Cole and his fiddlers 3. Old King Cole was a merry soul, and he called his 3 daughters to him. My daughters, tell me, how much do you love me? And the eldest daughter said, my father, I love you like life. Very good, very good. My second daughter, and you? Father, better than all the world. And my youngest daughter, my sweetest daughter. Oh, Father, I love you, as fresh meat loves salt. Salt! You love me like salt. Is that all you have to say? Yes, Father. Then leave my palace, my youngest daughter, and never return. And his youngest daughter, taking her mother's dresses, which she had given to the girl before the mother died, went running from her father's palace. And she came down to the riverside. And there, growing by the river, were rushes. And she cut the rushes and made from them a coat. And she put that coat on her back, and it covered her head with a hood. And she went onto a small boat, which carried her downstream, flowing slowly between the rushes and the reeds. And on she travelled for 3 days, until she came to another kingdom. And there she left the boat and setting off for the city of that kingdom. And she came to the palace and she knocked on the door, and the door opened, and there stood a servant. What do you want? I have nothing. What is your name? Cap of Rushes. I just want food and shelter. Very well, said the servant. Come in, you can work in the kitchens. We need a maid to scrape the pots and the pans and to sweep the ashes from the fire. Come in. And she was taken down to the kitchens, and there she was put to work, and she worked hard. She scraped the pots and the pans, and they were full of grease from the king's banquets. And she brushed the cinders from the fire, and she slept in the grate. But the people, the maidservants who worked in the kitchen, they liked her, for she was bold and honest and true. And so it was that she grew up in that kitchen. Well, one day, the maidservants came to her. Cap of Rushes, have you heard? Today there is to be a dance in the castle green. All of us are invited, even you, Cap of Rushes. Come, put on your best and come to the dance. We'll pipe and we'll sing, oh. Can you sing that? We'll pipe and we'll sing, oh. That's right. We'll dance in a ring, oh. We'll dance in a ring, oh. Where each lad takes his lass. Where each lad takes his lass. All on the green grass. All on the green grass. Cap of Rushes, she said, but it's all to scrape all the pots and the pans, oh. I have labour aplenty while you go to dance. And the maidservants, they went off to the castle green, and they began their dancing. And there were lads to dance with, and all was fine. The king was there, and the young prince. Well, Cap of Rushes in the kitchens, you know what she did? She took off her cap of rushes, and there she had underneath one of her mother's dresses, a dress that shone like the morning sun. And there it was. Out in the castle green she came, and it was the first day of spring, and she danced so prettily with the others. All were amazed by her beauty. She was the most lovely maiden ever seen in that kingdom. The prince noticed her, could not speak, for he was so taken with her loveliness. But at the end of the evening, as it was growing dark, Cap of Rushes, she slipped away, and back to the kitchen she came, and she put on once more that cap of rushes that covered her head and all of her body. It looked so old and misshapen. And when the maidservants returned from the dance, they said, Cap of Rushes, you should have been there, Cap of Rushes. There was a princess who came, but no one knows where from or her name. Cap of Rushes said nothing. Time passed. It was the first day of May Day. A warm sun, and as the evening fell, the maidservant said, there is to be another dance, and there is a hope from the prince that maiden, that princess might come again, that he might dance with her. Oh, she may come, Cap of Rushes, come to the party, come to the dance. And they sang, remember, we'll pipe and we'll sing, oh, we'll dance in a ring, oh, where each lad takes his lass, all on the green grass. The Cap of Rushes answered, but it's all to scrape all the pots and the pans, oh, I have labour a-plenty, while you go to dance. And the other maidservants, they slipped away from the kitchens and they came to the castle green. And there it was, so shining in the evening of May Day. They danced so prettily, but they all watched to see if that princess, that mysterious girl, would come again. And there was the prince in hope, in his best and finest robes. And indeed, there she appeared. Oh, she was wearing an even lovelier dress before. It was covered in flowers, so pretty. And she danced, and the prince came, and he danced with her. And they danced all the evening long, but she would not tell him who she was or where she came from. But at the end of the evening, she escaped, slipping away and back to the palace kitchens, and there she put on her coat of rushes, and she lay down in the ashes by the fire. And the other maidservants, they returned, oh, Cap of Rushes, you should have been there. She was there again. She danced with the prince. Oh, but the prince is so sad that she left before he could give his goodbye and find out who she is. Oh, you should have seen her, Cap of Rushes. Cap of Rushes, she said. Well, time passed and on she worked in the kitchen. And the day came. It was Midsummer's Day, the longest day of the year. The sun at its zenith. It was so perfect a day. And the maidservants came, and you know what they told Cap of Rushes there, who was sweeping the ashes from the fire and scraping the pots and pans? They said there will be another party, another dance on the castle green. This is the last one, Cap of Rushes, and the prince will ask that maiden to marry him, whoever she is. Come with us. We'll pipe and we'll sing, oh, we'll dance in a ring, oh, where each lad takes his lass, all on the green grass. But it's all to scrape all the pots and the pans, oh, I have labour a-plenty, while you go to dance. And off went the other maidens, excited. Would that princess appear? Do you think she will? Well, Cap of Rushes, as soon as they had gone, she took off that strange and ugly coat, and out of the palace she came. The longest day of the year, and the evening was still early. And with the last glimmers of the sun as it fell, it shone upon her dress. It shone like the stars in the night sky, so perfectly. And off she went to dance. No one was allowed to dance with her except Prince. And the prince, oh, his heart throbbed in his chest. He wanted to ask her to marry him, but he was so shy of Cap of Rushes. What is your true name? What's your true name, maiden? Who are you, princess? She would not tell him. At the end of the evening, she made her escape, and as the darkness fell, she slipped away from him. He ran after her. He gave her his ring. Promise that you will be my wife?" She took the ring, and laughing, she ran away. He could not follow where she went. She slipped between the trees in the castle green gardens, and then made her way secretly back to the kitchens, where she put on her cap of rushes and lay down by the fire and waited. And soon the maidservants came, and they told her, "Oh, the prince is heartbroken, for that lovely princess has escaped on cap of rushes. Perhaps she will never return. You really should have come." The next day, the word was spread round the castle that indeed the prince was taken ill. He was so sad. Nowhere could they find that princess who had his ring. Days passed, and the prince had not eaten. Iller and iller, paler and paler he became. There was great sadness. People talked in hushed voices. Cap of Rushes shuffled away from the fire, and she came to the cook at his table. "Let me prepare a broth, a soup for the prince." "You," said the cook, "what do you know of cooking? You're the slave who scrapes the pots and the pans and brushes the ash from the fire. I beg you, let me." "Very well," said the cook, but he liked her. He respected her for the hard work she had done. And there she made a wonderful soup from the finest vegetables and herbs from the king's gardens. And when she had finished, it was given to one of the maidservants, and she went up, stepping up higher and higher, until she came to the prince's chamber in the tower. The prince refused the soup, and the soup was taken down again. "Let me take the soup to the prince," said Cap of Rushes. "You cannot appear outside the kitchen the way you look. Oh, let me." Well, finally they relented, and they gave her that bowl of soup, and she walked. Step by step she climbed the stairs. When she got to the top, she knocked on the door of the prince, but it did not open. She pushed it, and there he was, pale, deathly. She stepped over to the bed, and she took a spoon of that soup, and she held it under his nose, and there was a quiver of his nostrils. She put the spoon to his lips, and a small trickle of soup passed between them. His eyes flickered open. He took another spoon of the soup, and then rose up on his elbows. The soup was so good and nourishing. He took the bowl and drank all of the soup. Oh, it was the most wonderful soup, restoring and healthy. And there at the bottom of the bowl of soup, he found his ring. And he took that ring and rose from the bed and looked at Cap of Rushes. "What are you?" She stepped forward. She took her Cap of Rushes and let it fall to the floor. And there she was, wearing a dress fit for a bride. You. A wedding was arranged. People were invited from far and wide. Oh, nobles came, and there was such celebration to be had. But from another land there came one king who was not so joyful. He came with a heavy heart, his eyes dark, his face bent to the ground. He did not recognize his own daughter. What was that king? What was his name? Old King Cole. And he sat at the table and did not even notice the bride who was sitting there looking at him, worrying that her father seemed so ill. When the food was prepared, the princess, who had told no one who she was, she went to the kitchens and said, "When you serve the meat at the table, put no salt on the meat that is served to old King Cole." "What?" they said. "Follow my orders." And so the meat was served, and it was delicious, and all began to eat. But old King Cole, he put the meat to his mouth, and he began to chew. "What is the meaning of this? This meat has no salt, and meat without salt. Oh, my daughter." And at that moment, the princess, she rose to her feet, that new bride. She looked across the table at her father, and before all of the court assembled there, she sang, "Oh, Father, I love you, as fresh meat loves salt." "My daughter." He fell to his knees before her, begging her forgiveness. "So badly have your older sisters treated me since you departed. Oh, why did I drive you away? What greater honour than to be invited to your wedding, my daughter? Forgive me." Do you think she forgave him? Yes. She forgave her father, and there to celebrate the wedding, they danced on the castle green. It was the most wonderful dance. People leapt and sang for joy. I know, because I was there. I was the storyteller at the wedding, and it was the most wonderful celebration I have ever experienced. Old King Cole was a merry old soul, and a merry old soul was he. He called for his pipe, and he called for his bowl, and he called for his fiddle and string. Now every fiddler had a very fine fiddle, and a very fine fiddle had he. There's none so fair as can compare with King Cole and his fiddlers three. From year 5, rise to your feet, because you need to go swimming.
That way, because I've got 2 classes coming in this way. Can you do that first, Mr. Coke? And then I'll move foundations.
Lovely. While the others are going out, could the children that are still here, could you whisper to each other, what did you like about the story of Cap of Rushes? What did you like about it?
does it? Jakey, stay in the line. You nearly made Oliver trip over.
about what you liked about Cap of Rushes. Did you notice that it was quite similar to Cinderella? You can talk about that with your teachers, can't you? Yeah. But right now, I'm going to tell you another story. Welcome to the Year 4s who've just come in. Nice to have you. This story comes from a place that's even colder than Bridgewater. You go up north, and you come to this island called Iceland. It must be cold. Once, there was a farmer and a wife, and they had a little boy, and they had a cow, who they called Bukola. Bukola had long horns and a shaggy coat. One day, the farmer's wife tended to Bukola as she gave birth to a calf. And the farmer's wife looked after the cow and the calf, and then went inside to the farmhouse. When she returned to tend to Bukola and the calf again, the calf was still there, but Bukola, the cow, had gone. Bukola, where are you? She ran into the house and told her husband. Her husband turned to their son. Our boy, you must find Bukola, and do not return home without her. Here, put on these shoes. And for the first time, the boy wore shoes. They were good, strong shoes. And for the first time, he left his home. And he left the home and walked away across the plains, the grassy plains of Iceland. He walked, and he walked, and he walked. And after a long time, he called, Bukola, if you can hear me, moo! Far in the distance, very, very quiet, he heard, did I hear her? Perhaps I did, carried on the wind. And the boy set off walking in that direction. A long time he walked. Now he was getting tired. He came to icy wastes. His feet would have slipped if his shoes hadn't been so strong and good. He stopped and he called, Bukola, if you can hear me, moo! A little louder than before, he heard the cow, and on he walked in that direction. He came over mountains, and the way was hard, and down the other side, until finally he came to the shore. There were great cliffs, towering cliffs, and he stood at the top looking down, and the waves were breaking cold on the cliff face. Where was she? Bukola, if you can hear me, moo! There it was, louder than before. It came from down there below. He looked and there was no sign. He turned and began to climb down the cliff, from crag to crag, his good new shoes giving him grip against the slippery cliff face. He came down lower and lower. The salt spray of the icy ocean crashed over his body, but he did not give up. He came at the bottom to an entrance to a great and mysterious dark cave. Into the cave he stepped. And there in the dimness was